Okay, all underrated team. This should be fun. Here's how this is going to work. Basically, I'm just going to pick someone from each position that I think I'm way higher on than the average perception of them. So this player could be anyone from a future Hall of Famer that I think should be even better than they're perceived to someone who's mediocre, but many perceive them to be terrible. It could be anywhere in that. It's just all about who I think is way better than they get credit for. So that's how it works. Pretty simple, and let's just get into it. Starting things off with quarterback, I got Drew Brees. And listen, I know a lot of people might say, wait a second. Okay, hold on. Drew Brees, he's a future Hall of Famer. No one thinks he's bad. But actually, there is kind of this perception that he's lost a step. But if you look at his numbers, he's still been fantastic. So I really do think that Drew Brees, he deserves this spot right here. Also, though, I do have to give an honorable mention to Gardner Minshew, who was fantastic himself. For halfbacks, I'm going Chris Carson right here for Seattle. And listen, I think a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, he's kind of good, but he's kind of been swept under the rug a little bit. Chris Carson is a fantastic halfback. He's, I think, a borderline top 5 halfback in the league. He might be in my top 5. He's that good. Most people don't put him that high up, and I think it's really a shame because I think he's just such a talented back, and so that's why I'm going to have him here as my underrated halfback. For the New York Jets, tight end Ryan Griffin. So this is the one for tight end. Listen, a lot of people might be saying, who? There might be a couple people saying, isn't that the backup quarterback for Tampa Bay? No. This is a tight end for New York. There was kind of some talk about like maybe O.J. Howard was going to get traded to the Jets in exchange for Adams, and that was never going to happen because they have Griffin, who's a really good tight end. Maybe I'll make a film study on him in the future because I really like him. For wide receivers, there's going to be 2 here. The first is Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson definitely does not get enough credit. He's played with very poor quarterback play basically his entire career, so he's really struggled to get those big yards, but he still had some really good statistical seasons, and his tape is fantastic. Speaking of fantastic tape, if you have some free time and you have NFL Game Pass, do yourself a favor and watch some Cortland Sutton tape because he is very fun to watch. One of the best contested catchers in the NFL, and he still does get himself separation. I think that team with Denver next year is going to be scary, and him as, starting off as the #1 receiver should definitely, I think people will really take notice once they start to get more media attention. For my flex spot, this is the position that goes to either tight end, halfback, or wide receiver. I'm giving it to halfback Nick Chubb. The reason why I'm giving it to Nick Chubb here is because, again, he's one of those guys that I think, even though everyone agrees that he's great, I think he's even greater. I think he should be in the conversation for best halfback in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if he leads every halfback category next year. There's none that I think that would be shocked if he does lead. I think he's fantastic. Okay, for offensive tackles, you could probably just, name any offensive tackle because they never get any credit. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Titus Howard for the Houston Texans. There still is this narrative that the Houston Texans have terrible offensive line play. It's not really true anymore. And a big part of that was drafting Titus Howard, who I think had a very promising rookie season. You could argue he struggled a bit in the running game, but he more than made up for it in the passing game. And for a tackle, that's what I want. You also have Braden Smith as my second guy. Again, 2 tackles, so he's the second one. I think Braden Smith is also very underrated. He plays for the Colts, so that's part of it. People mostly just talk about the Colts' good offensive line, and he's not the best player on the line. That's Nelson, and he's not even the best tackle. That's Costanzo, but he's still fantastic, and so I think he deserves some credit. Okay, for guards now, the first one is going to be Ellington Jenkins. I've made a full film study on him, so check that one out. But anyways, I think that he is a very underrated player. It makes sense why he's underrated. He was a rookie last year. He was drafted in the 2nd round, so there wasn't too much hype about him. And he didn't even start the season as a starter, but when he did get playing time, he was fantastic and should be a great guard going forward for Green Bay. Okay, how about for my second guard pick, Richie Incognito? Now, listen, Incognito, he is 37 years old. But again, I'm not predicting the future. I'm just talking about what they did last season. And he was actually really good last season. I think a lot of us just assumed because he took a year off, he wouldn't be good. But he was just as good as he's ever been last year. So I think that he definitely underrated for sure. And for center, I think, longtime fans of this channel knew this was coming. Garrett Bradberry, I got to put him here as the underrated center. He was another rookie last year that he got like a kind of a negative perception, and I actually do kind of get it. The reason why he did get a negative perception, I believe, is because when he does make a mistake, it's very noticeable, whereas sometimes a lot of guys make mistakes and it's not noticeable. But that being said, I still think that doesn't necessarily take away from his talent. Really good run blocker, and I'm excited to see what he'll do next year. Okay, moving on to defense now. We'll start with the edge rushers, and I'm going to go Justin Houston right here. Houston, again, really underrated guy. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be washed up, but he actually had a great season for Indianapolis, and I fully expect him to continue to be great. So, yeah, he definitely deserves a spot right here. How about Indianapolis now? They got a few guys on this list. For my other edge rusher position, I'm going Robert Quinn right here. If you look at his career stats, you would think, oh man, this guy's fantastic. 4 double-digit sack seasons. He's racked up a total of 80.5 sacks over his career, including one 19 sack season. Of course, the reason why he kind of got a lot of heat for he didn't live up to his contract after his 19 sack season, but I think that kind of has made him underrated. He became so overrated, he is now underrated. Still a really good player. Okay, for my first underrated player on the interior defensive line, I'm going to go Cameron Hayward right here. Cameron Hayward, fun stat about him is that in the past 3 seasons, he's racked up 27 sacks. I mean, that's crazy for someone who is an interior defensive lineman, and you know how much I love interior D linemen who can still generate pressure. He's been a really good player for a really decent amount of time now, and he has shown no signs of slowing down. My second pick is going to be Matt Iannitis. Matt Iannitis plays for the Washington football team, and again, he's another guy who he can generate pressure, he can get sacks, also a very good run stopper. He should be a big part of a really good D-line next year for them. Okay, for the next category, I am going to do linebackers who aren't edge rushers. So I'm going to start things off with Levante David, who's been consistently getting slept on for most of his career because for the longest time he played outside linebacker in a 4-3, which basically means you get put up against edge rushers and you're never going to get Pro Bowls and stuff like that. But he's a fantastic player. He's finally starting to get some recognition. Now people are paying attention to Tampa Bay. But, he could end up with the tackles record by the time this is all over. So really good player. For my second pick, I am going to go Zach Cunningham here. I think Zach Cunningham is fantastic. I'm a big fan of what Zach Cunningham can do. Again, I love how he's 6'4", but can still go up and, knock balls away. Really hard to, thread the needle against Zach Cunningham. I think that's so effective in the passing game, and he's still a good run defender as well. I think he does not get enough credit. Really talented player and absolutely worthy of a spot on this team. So a lot of these players so far have been players who I feel like are underrated by fans and by the media. Well, how about someone that's getting underrated by teams? He's still not on one. Logan Ryan is going to be my first pick for cornerback. He's really good. I don't understand why he's not on a team yet. But, again, I also feel like he's underrated in terms of what people talk about. Everyone's talking about Clowney. I'm just as confused as to why Ryan has not landed on a team yet. So I think he's worthy of a spot on the list because of that. My other cornerback selection is going to be James Bradberry. I really like James Bradberry. I think, he's a big corner who can move, so he can really defend against these bigger receivers. And again, receivers are getting taller and taller. I don't know if anyone noticed this, but it used to be like 6'3" was really tall for a receiver. Now 6'3" is like your average receiver, and there's 6'4" and 6'5" guys out there who can still be really effective. Well, Bradberry is someone who, he's a big receiver. He can go up and defend those guys, which is really valuable. For safeties, my first safety is going to be Anthony Harris right here. I think a large part of why he doesn't get too much credit is because, Harrison Smith is on his team, who's another, better known safety, so he kind of gets a lot of the credit. And also, their cornerback play hasn't been that great, so people never say, hey, look at the Vikings defense. So it's kind of worst of both worlds in terms of getting media attention, but he's fantastic. I really think that he can be a great safety for many years to come. Really good player. My other safety, I'm going to give this one to Denver Broncos Justin Simmons. I think he's another guy, another Bronco, and I think his team hasn't gotten a ton of credit because they haven't gotten a ton of media attention recently, so that's kind of why he slept under the radar. I know Billy has made a film study on him, so check out that one. He did a really good job with it. Simmons, really underrated player, really good player, and I'm interested to see what he'll do next year. And finally, I have a flex spot for defense as well. This is because there's only 10 spots that I have like definitive. So this could be either a linebacker or a cornerback or a safety is what the flex spot is. It's Landon Collins, as you see on the screen. I think Landon Collins, people act like he's just a box safety. I feel like people don't give him enough credit for how good he can be at, being a strong safety. His coverage, I think, is a bit overblown. I think he's fine in coverage. Okay, we're not done yet. That's right. Special teams as well. For kickers, I'm going Josh Lambo. Fun fact, in the past 3 seasons, Josh Lambo has a higher field goal percentage than Justin Tucker, which is just crazy. Josh Lambo, absolutely worthy of a spot on this team. I think he's a really good kicker. And finally, I am going with a man who is 38 years old. I am going with Andy Lee on this one. Andy Lee, definitely, towards the end of his career, but honestly, it seems like he's just getting better with age. In fact, he's punted for an average of at least 46 yards per punt every year of his career since 2006. So definitely someone who's consistent, and he can definitely reach some high heights. So yeah, that's my thought on the underrated team. Again, those are just some guys that I feel like deserve a little bit more credit, so I'm giving it to them. I know somehow people are still going to watch this video and be like, but I thought this person was more underrated. Who cares? I mean, I'm talking about some players. I just think it's fun. Let me know in the comments below, who do you think would be, who's second team on this list? Who else do you feel like is underrated who didn't make this list? How about that? Love to hear your answers. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.